Aloha, welcome to Hawaii State Women's Caucus. We are doing legislative training today with the Public Access Room, and I will let our host go ahead and take it away.
So, Keanu, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the crew that's here a little bit about yourself?
Okay. My name is Keanu. I am the assistant coordinator of the Public Access Room. I've been here at PAR, I think, for about 10 years. Prior to coming over to the Public Access Room, I was in the House of Representatives for a number of years. I managed 3 reps offices. And prior to that, I was over at City Council working with now Senator, at that time, Councilmember De La Cruz. I was with him for 4 years at the council, and I worked a couple of sessions prior to that. I've kind of been jumping all around. I guess I found my calling here, doing legislative work. I've done all kinds of stuff, but I really enjoy teaching, and I really enjoy being in the Public Access Room because we're a nonpartisan office, and we teach both sides. So ironically, around the same time that you guys reached out to us, we were contacted by your counterparts over on the Republican Party, but somehow that kind of fell through. So maybe they'll contact us later.
Oh, we're not sad about that at all.
But one of their members was in our office the other day, so we may be doing it in the future. But yeah, so I'm here. I've been here for 10 years, working with Virginia Beck for most of the time. She was the Public Access Room coordinator, and she retired, a very well-deserved retirement at the end of the 2024 session. And so Andy Langhurst is the new Public Access Room coordinator. I could have been the new coordinator, but I've got too much things going on in my life, and I think Andy's younger and a lot more focused. So she took over the head role, and we work very well together. She is currently in Sacramento attending a work conference, and then I'll be out next week traveling to Boston to NCSL, so another work conference. So it's fun. We've been busy, but this is kind of a nice break from the things that we've been usually doing. So
the crew knows that Keanu was office manager, is that right, or legislative assistant to Representative Marilyn Lee?
Her office manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the office manager? Who was the co-chair of the Women's Legislative Caucus for a long time, probably a decade.
Yeah, she's a very hardworking, woman. Probably still hardworking.
Yes, she is, because I saw her on neighborhood board last night.
Oh,
I'll tell her you said hi.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get into my presentation. So I'm gonna share my screen. Go back one. Okay. So today we're gonna talk about how the general public can participate in the legislative process. And we'll also talk about the Public Access Room and throw in some advocacy tips and some, tips on using the legislature's website. So we just finished session, I think was May 4th. We're in the interim period right now where a lot of legislators are kind of doing, interim type of work, prepping for next session, sending bill drafts, doing research, going back into the communities and focusing on community issues. Some of them are still here in the building, that their staff has a presence here. So you can always reach them unless the staff members are on vacation, which sometimes around this time people tend to take. Okay, so the point of this presentation is to teach you how to use the website, teach you about the Public Access Room, provide an overview of the legislature and the legislative process, and provide some advocacy tips. So I know this is in July. A lot of it, some of it you may forget by the time session rolls around, because we're about 6 or 7 months away. But just know that we're here all the time during the interim. We're here during session. We have more staff, a little bit more staff during session. So we could always assist you in any of your advocacy efforts during session, and even when we're not in session, because lawmaking is a year-round process. So we're here all the time, and we're always eager and happy to help. Okay, so the Public Access Room was established in 1990 by the legislature. Common Cause Hawaii and the League of Women Voters were working to get this room available, and they had a place, an office space in the basement. And in 1990, the legislature established the room. And then in 1994, it became permanent, so they had full-time staff members. In 1996, the Public Access Room became a division of the Legislative Reference Bureau, which is a nonpartisan service agency here at the Capitol. There's 5 divisions, and we're one of the 5. Just real quick, there's a research division, and they do a lot of the bill drafting for the bills that are introduced during session. There's a statute revision division, and they're doing all of their work now. And a lot of their bulk of their work comes after session when they're incorporating new laws into the state's permanent laws in the HRS and creating the session law booklets. There's LRB Library, which is one of the other divisions that work directly with the public, and they're a research library located in the basement of the Capitol. We have a systems office that serves as all of our tech support, but also they create a lot of the reports that come out on the legislative things, like all the bills that are introduced by certain legislators, all the resolutions that are introduced. So they create a lot of helpful reports. And then there's us. So as mentioned earlier, we were created in 1990. It's 2025. So I believe this year is our 30th year anniversary. At one point, the Public Access Room handled all the testimony for the legislature. I'm glad we're not doing that anymore, and those testimonies go straight to the committees. But we're nonpartisan, taxpayer-funded legislative resource office with a presence here at the Capitol. But when people talk about the Public Access Room, it's the office, but also the Public Access Room staff. And that's currently Andy and I. And then during session, we hire an additional 2 people just to help us manage the work volume. So because we're taxpayer funded, any and all of our services are at no charge. In the past, we've traveled around the neighbor islands to take our office resources to other areas. But after COVID, we do most of our training via Zoom. We can still reach everybody else. And so it was nice traveling around, because you get to have a face-to-face meeting with people from other islands. But we're still doing the training, just not traveling to meet them in person. We're nonpartisan, so we help people on different sides of issues. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we'll help you equally. We have lots of resources, and most of the resources that are created that you can, most of the resources that you can find here at the Public Access Room and on our website is created by our staff. So either in the past, Virginia and myself, or now Andy and I and our session staff. And we have resources on all kinds of things, about who's here in the legislature, different things in the legislative process, what they do on the floor, what are the orders of the day, how do committees work, what's the power of the chair, what are resolutions, what do the deadlines mean? We create the session calendar. We even create information for Keiki, and so we teach at a kind of a broad level. So we have lots of resources. We can provide guidance on the process. We have computers with internet access. This is especially helpful for our kupuna, a lot of whom don't really know how to use the computers, but want to testify on bills. And so during session, you may see a lot of kupuna in our office, and we're teaching them how to get onto the website and create accounts, and then get their testimony on paper into the website, and then we help them send it off. We have our wireless access here, and so you can bring your laptops and phones and use it here in the office. We have a recharging device, so if your phones or laptops are dying, you can recharge them on a recharging station. We can provide copies of testimonies and communication to legislators, a lot of helpful handouts, and we teach a bunch of different things. So legislative process, we teach people how to use the website. We talk about how people can use the interim to their benefit. Um, we have a budget workshop, and so a lot of different tutorials we create and we present. And so Andy and I are here. So Andy and I are year-round employees of the public access room. So we are here from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday throughout the year. And during session, we hire an additional 2 people, and they help us manage the workload. So that's a little bit about the public access room. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me after. There's not a whole lot of people that know that we exist, and so people are finding out, after working with us or after their friends work with us, and so we're getting more well known. But we really want to get out there because our primary responsibility is to help the public engage in the process, and so if people don't know that we're available, they're not going to use our services or our access. So we're always happy to help. So let people know about us. This is what our office looks like. We've got new art in our office. We kind of changed it around. Andy did a really good job of, just kind of changing our office up a little bit. And so if you're at the Capitol, you can come by and see it. Again, we're open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. During session, we're open from 7:45 to 5. And session will start on the 3rd Wednesday in January next year. Okay, just going over the legislative process, let's just talk about the branches real quick. We'll focus on the state government because I know at the federal level, things are, a lot of the branches are encroaching onto each other. But for us, the legislative branch makes the laws, the judicial branch interprets the laws, and the executive branch implements the laws. So there's different tiers of government. The national government is at the federal level where you have Congress and the president and the Supreme Court. Below us, we have the county councils. And so they create laws just for their specific counties. And they're managed by the mayors and the mayor's team. And then you have the state legislature, and they make laws for the entire state of Hawaii. Hawaii has a bicameral legislature. That just means that there's 2 chambers. The states are set up the way they do things at the federal level. And the only state that's really different is Nebraska. They're a unicameral form of government. Other states have longer sessions, shorter sessions. They have legislative sessions every other year. Some have lots of members, some don't. So that all depends on their own state constitutions. But for us, we're a bicameral legislature, and we have 25 Senate districts and 51 House districts. So we have 25 senators and 51 representatives, and they basically serve the same function as lawmakers. But the Senate is a smaller group, 25 compared to 51. They have bigger legislative districts. So each House district encompasses each Senate district encompasses about 2 House districts. And senators serve 4-year terms, whereas representatives serve 2-year terms. So the Senate terms are staggered. So every 2 years, the entire House of Representatives will be up for election, and then half of the Senate. Again, basically, they serve the same function, but they operate a little bit differently. The Senate also has the advice and consent power to confirm the governor's appointments to the heads of his state departments and agencies, and also some judicial appointments. And the House has the power of impeachment, which to my knowledge, they have never had to use. So lawmakers, their primary responsibility is to make laws, and they serve as the voting district's voice here at the Capitol. So they vote on legislation, but they can also assist their constituents with issues that the state has some type of ownership over. So if it's whether it's the schools or a bad highway, on traffic, um, you have problems with your taxes, you can contact your legislators and ask them to assist you. And they can serve as a kind of go-between between yourself and the State Department, um, where you're trying to reach or address an issue. So legislators serve on committees that focus on particular areas of legislative policy. There are currently 18 House committees and 16 Senate committees, and every committee has a chair, a vice chair, and members. And the chairs of these committees have a lot of power in the process because all it takes is for one chair to not like a bill, and the bill could die either by them not scheduling it or by making a decision to defer the bill after the bill has been heard and testimony has been accepted. So people ask, well, who puts the committee chairs on there? Who appoints the committee members? That's done by leadership in the House and Senate. And again, a little bit different. I think the Senate has they get referrals from the Senate Majority Staff Office, SMA, and they make recommendations to the Speaker's referral committee, and then they decide, okay, whether or not the bill should go to those committees. I think the House just discusses that with the House leadership team on where the bill should go, and a lot of it is based on past practice. Legislators can also serve in leadership roles, Speaker, Senate President, majority leaders, majority floor leaders, whips, vice speakers, vice presidents. Those are usually decided by the members during caucus. So this can change at any time, but right now it's been pretty static for a little bit. And the head leaders, the Senate President and the House Speaker, they're just chosen by the majority members of their party. So right now, Senate President and House Speaker are both from Hawai'i. Okay, just real quick, a lot of people don't know how to find their legislator, and the reason why that's important, you guys probably all do, but if you have friends that don't, it's good to help them find their legislators because the legislators are serving them and being their voice here at the Capitol. So on the legislature's website, it's capitol.hawaii.gov. You're just going to click on the legislature tab, and then from the drop-down menu, select the Find Your Legislator. It'll bring up a window, and you can just type your address in, and it may just self-populate. When you do that, you can see the address, and it'll list the Senate district in blue and the House district in red. And there you can see who your senator is. In this case, it's Senator Rhodes. His contact information is listed there. And same for the House members, if you were to look at your House district representative. Also, if you wanted to just see who all the members of the Senate and the House are, you can just click on their links on the tab, click on their tab on the drop-down menu, and just take a look at either if you wanted to see the leadership or the Senate committees, or just all senators. You can click on the link and it'll list all the senators and representatives in alphabetical order, and you can see the districts they represent and their phone numbers, their room numbers, and their email addresses. So this is a good place to go just to learn more about the legislators if you don't know much about them. A lot of them have bios, and they may archive their district newsletters on their pages on the website. Before we continue, I always want to remind everybody that the most important people in the type of government that we have is the public. We are representative democracy, and so we elect our leaders, and then they work for us. So if you looked at the pyramid of government and how our government is structured, the people are actually at the top. unfortunately, people don't put themselves on the top. It's usually the person in charge, whether it's the president or the governor or the mayor. But the people are on the top because the people um, are the ones that are, the government. I mean, the government officials work by us. They're elected by us, and we have to hold them accountable. So these are things that you can do as a regular citizen. You can vote for your state senator, and you'll do that every 4 years. You can vote for your state representative every 2 years. You can vote on proposed amendments to the state constitution. So because we haven't had a con since 1978, most of the constitutional amendments go through in bill form. And so they're introduced in a bill form where a question's asked. Um, that gets proposed through the process. And then if the amendment passes the legislature, instead of going to the governor, it goes to the public, and we vote on whatever the question is. So, that's how the constitutional amendments work. You can run for office or help somebody else to do so. The only qualifications for running for office in the state is to be 18 years of age and older, live in the district that you want to represent, and have been a Hawaii resident for at least 3 years. You don't have to have a fancy degree in politics, or you don't have to be a lawyer. There's people from all parts of life that are here. We've got teachers here. We've had nurses here. We have business people here. So we have all kinds of people, and you just have to get people to support your efforts to make the state a better place to live.
I have a quick question about residency qualifications.
Yeah.
Because I recently got my Hawaii ID last year, but I've had property here since like 2015. So what constitutes as Hawaii resident for 3 years? Is it like having a state ID, or is it having like property in your name?
That part I'm not really clear on, and so I guess we'd have to contact the Office of Elections to see. Um, yeah, so right now I don't know how they qualify people. Whether I would think that maybe you would have to have some proof of residency in the island, getting mail at a certain place like that. But I'm not entirely sure. Okay, after running for office, you can communicate your views and priorities with your legislators directly and offer testimony on bills that you care about that are moving through the process, and then joining with other people to amplify your voices. So when using your voices, we talked about talking with legislators, suggesting bills for hearings, suggesting a bill for drafting, asking for hearings for bills, testifying, and contacting the governor. In communicating with legislators, the first bullet point that we had, you can communicate your position by writing a letter, which nobody really does nowadays. But if you do write to legislators, just know that mail takes a little bit longer um, for the communication to happen, right? Because you have to mail your letter, they have to get it, and then they have to mail the communication back to you. That's still acceptable, but just make sure if you're sending a letter to a legislator that you write legibly and include your return address. Emails are very convenient because you can write your email when it's convenient for you, and they'll read it when it's convenient for them. It's a quick way of communication. Just when writing emails, if you're writing to chairs of committees, let them know why you're writing and what issues you're concerned about. If you're writing to your own legislator, let them know that you're a constituent, because they'll prioritize your email and try to respond to you quickly. When you're making a phone call, you're most likely not going to be talking to a legislator directly unless they're expecting your call. If you do want to talk to a legislator, let the person that answers the phone know that you appreciate a call back from the senator or the representative. And if you're talking to staff, just let them know for the, the reason that you're calling, what you're calling about, make sure they understand that, and can follow up with you. You can also meet with legislators in person, and you have to schedule a courtesy visit with their offices, or just stop by the Capitol. But we don't know what their schedules are like, so it's always good to reach out prior to your visit and ask if you can have a few minutes with the legislator to talk about the issues that you guys are concerned about, and we can help. Andy's been here 3 years. I've been here going on 11 years, and so we do have experience in working with legislators and try to provide the best advice that we can, so you can meet your objectives. Okay, getting back to the legislative process, the legislative sessions always begin on the third Wednesday in January. And for this past session, it started on January 15th. When you're looking at the pie chart on the bottom, the left side is the interim period. Those are the time between sessions where we're at now, where legislators have a little bit more time to talk to you if you have ideas for bills, or if you wanted to talk on an issue, say a bill stuck in a committee, and that you want that bill to come out of a committee next year. You can talk to a legislator to see the best way to do that. So they're more available, and a lot of them are doing work to prep for next session. And then we get into the right side, where session happens, and the colored wedges are the dates between deadlines, and things move very quickly. So it's important to understand what the deadlines mean and know when your bills have to move out of certain committees by, because if not, you're going to risk those bills dying without you having a say in it. And again, we can help you with understanding the deadlines on the calendar. So this is what the calendar looks like, and this calendar is actually created by the public access realm. We don't create the deadlines. We take the internal calendars and when session starts, and we make this nice color-coded calendar where on the back there's explanations of what all these deadlines mean, and we can talk you through through the deadlines and what this deadline means, and okay, when does your bill have to get out of a certain committee. We'll be happy to do that. When I first started, the calendar was pretty confusing to me. I think it took me like 2 or 3 sessions to really understand what everything was, but I'm very well aware of all these deadlines, and so I really like talking about the calendar. So if you guys have questions about that, you can call me anytime. Once the session calendar comes out, and it'll come out in December at some point. It's usually the third week in December, where the House Speaker and Senate President have a talk, and they just figure out what the session is going to look like. So it could be longer based on the number of recess days they put in. It could be shorter by them taking away recess days. It just says in the Constitution that the legislature can meet no more than 60 days for a regular session, and that opening day starts on the third Wednesday in January. So a lot of people want to share ideas for new laws. If you do have ideas for new laws, make sure to share them with the legislators that you want to work with well before the start of session. Once we get into after the holidays to December and January, the drafting agencies are very busy trying to draft all the requests that are made by the legislators. And so there's a couple of drafting agencies. There's a Legislative Reference Bureau. Our research office drafts legislation for House members and Senate members. Then we have the Senate and House majority offices, and they draft legislation for the House and Senate Democrats. And they have the House minority and Senate minority offices, and they can also draft legislation for their members. So legislators like to hear from the public. departments propose legislation through the governor's package, lobbyists propose legislation, interest groups, legislators just may have their own ideas, constituents. And so it's not as hard as you think in proposing legislation. You don't have to write the bill out yourselves. There's the drafting agencies can be helpful with that. But with that said, they work directly with the legislators. So you're going to have to talk to the legislators first. So to get a bill introduced in our state, you have to work with a legislator. And it's best to always start with your own legislator, the one that represents the district that you're in, just because they're your voice here at the Capitol. You can also talk to subject matter committees and subject matter chairs for bills that are relating to a certain subject. Like if I wanted the state to have more bicycle lanes, I would talk to my own legislator, but I could also talk to the chair of the transportation committees, because those types of bills would go through their committees, or members who have supported similar issues in the past. So you're not limited to your own legislator. And if you go to them and they may not want to introduce the bill, they may think that somebody else is better to introduce it, they can tell you that and you can get advice from them. So in making bill requests, you always want to summarize what the problem is or the opportunity is, what you'd like to see with the bill, why it's needed. And if other states are doing things that are similar and we haven't done that yet in Hawaii, you can look up laws from other states and just talk to a legislator and say, hey, can we take a look at implementing this in our state? And then they'll have send it to the drafting agencies, and those guys, the researchers and attorneys there, will figure out how that would work in here, and they'll draft it into a bill form. Or you can provide websites with data that can explain what you're trying to accomplish.
We have a question in the chat here asking, when will the 2026 session calendar be available?
That should be available sometime, maybe the third week in December of 2025. So later on this year. Yeah, it's usually right before session starts, or about a month before session starts. Okay, in talking to legislators, we do have this kind of a cheat sheet that Andy created, just that you could take with you, whether you're wanting to talk about a new bill or talk about a policy issue, or if you have a request for them, then let them know. Just provide some background, talk about what the issue and the problem is and the opportunity, what you think the solution is. So don't just take your problem to the legislator and ask them to figure it out themselves. You might want to provide some solution for them. If you don't know, you can talk with them to see what the best way to address the situation is. Make the ask, and ask them to take a position on a bill, to introduce a bill for you, to send a letter to a state department. Ask them to provide feedback on your idea, and maybe they can provide suggestions on who else you can work with. Maybe you just need them to sign a letter of support. They can do that too. So this is a cheat sheet. We do have this in our office, and just helps you figure out what to say and maybe how to say it, and what to ask. But we're not limited to this. These are just things that we do to try to make the advocacy a little bit easier for the public. Okay, opening days. The start of session is always on the third Wednesday in January. Next year, I think it's January 21st. It's usually a pretty festive day, and especially when there's new legislators. And we had that this past session with a lot of new legislators. This picture, so hopefully we'll see this picture again where, they don't have the barricades all over. They're doing a lot of work here at the Capitol. They're trying to get, the barricades taken down and have the nice new flooring, by 2027. So hopefully that happens. But right now they're doing a lot of work at the Capitol. So this is just the list of things that has to happen for a bill to become law in the state of Hawaii. It has to be introduced by a legislator at the very beginning of session. At the county level, they can introduce bills year round, but at the state level, it's usually about a 1 or 2 week period where all the bills are introduced. And during that time, about 3,000 bills on average are introduced by the House and Senate together. So it has to be introduced by a legislator. Um, it has to pass through every committee that it gets referred to in the House and Senate. And the referrals are done by leadership based on what the bill is trying to do. They'll take a look at the committees that would have some type of ownership or connection to it, and they'll refer the bills to those committees. So it has to get through all of the committees that it gets referred to. It has to pass 3 votes in each chamber. So bills start off in their area, in their chamber of origin. So House bills have to have at least 3 bills before they cross over to the Senate. 3 readings, sorry, before they cross over to the Senate, and the Senate has to have 3 bill readings before their bills cross over to the House. And the chambers are where all the members meet, and they're usually meeting at the very beginning before a bill even gets its referrals, and then the second and third readings happen in between the committee hearing processes. The House and Senate have to agree on the exact wording of a bill, and this is done in conference. And then for bills that get out of the legislature, they have to be either signed into law or to allowed to become law by just by the governor not doing anything to it. Or if the governor vetoes the bill, then the legislature calling themselves back in a special session and successfully overriding the veto. So this is a flow chart on how it would look. House bills start off on the left side in the kind of clayish colored um, circles. The Senate bills start off in the right side. The blue colored circles, they go through their processes, right? Go through first reading, they're referred to committees, they have hearings. And then if they continue to move forward, they'll go for their second reading, another committee hearing, third reading. And then if they make it, they cross over. And the bottom part, and then they go through the process all over again now in the opposite chamber. So for bills that make it past both chambers, then they go to the bottom, and this is where the conference committees will try to resolve the differences between the House draft and the Senate draft. And if they do that, they create a conference draft that goes back to the House chamber and Senate chamber, and they vote on it one more time in final reading. Then they send it off to the governor. And it has to do all of these things by the deadlines that are on the calendar. So the deadlines are like hurdles that the bill has to jump over. It can be quite confusing sometimes, even with the explanations on the back. So when we get to session, please call us or email us or come in and visit us, and we'll walk you through what all these deadlines mean. We tell you when your bills need to get out of certain committees. We're kind of well versed on this calendar. I enjoy it. I usually don't like numbers, but I enjoy the calendar. So you guys can always come and talk to me or Andy or our session staff. So bill introduction is the first thing that happens. Bills are introduced. Draft bills are taken to the clerk's office and they're stamped, given a number, put into the system, and off they go. And they usually start being filed on the first day of session. That said, this year, the House and Senate allowed them to pre-file bills, so they could file bills before session, the legislative session actually started. And so they had like a 2-week period this year. And I would assume next year being a carryover year that they'll probably allow them to do that as well. So you may see them populating on the website before session actually starts. This is what a bill looks like. You'll see the SB for the Senate bill, the HB for the House bill, then the bill number, the different drafts, and this bill has gone through a lot of changes. The bills will have a very broad title. And the reason for that is any change they make has to fit that title. And so they don't want to make the bills too narrow where it doesn't give them a lot of room to fix things they may think they're are wrong with it. But with that said, the broad titles also allow the legislators to maybe have too much wiggle room where they change things. And so it just kind of depends, but it's easier, I think, for the broad titles. I think they've been working okay. And then under the title, you'll see usually in section one, be it resolved, not a be it resolved clause, but we call that a purpose clause. Sorry, I'm thinking of resolutions. The first section is a preamble or purpose clause, and that just kind of provides some historical context to let you know what the legislature is trying to do with the bill. They'll talk about some legislative history and why the bill is necessary. Then you get into the body of the bill where they're changing language or adding language um, to the HRS, and the last section is where the bill takes effect. So through the first reading goes at the very beginning. It happens at the very beginning of the legislative process. It's a constitutional requirement that bills must pass 3 readings. They call it readings because they read the bill by title, but it's actually a floor vote on the floor of the chamber. So first reading happens at the very beginning, and all bills will pass first reading. They'll have no discussion on it. They'll pass hundreds of bills on first reading. And so this process goes by really quickly. Once bills get passed out of the first reading, leadership will figure out which committees the bill needs to go through, and in the order that it has to go through. And so you'll find out which committees the bill, your bill is going through. Once your bill has been scheduled for a hearing, this is your opportunity to ask the public, to ask for a public hearing by the chair. The chair of the committee has a lot of leeway and a lot of flexibility, a lot of power in deciding which bills he or she wants to hear. And it's usually a limited time because the deadlines are looming. And so if your bill has been referred to a committee, you want to make sure, once your bill, it will be referred to a committee, but once your bill gets referred to a committee, you want to make sure you contact the chair of the committee and ask them to schedule the bill for a hearing, because they don't have to. A lot of bills get past first reading, get referred to committee, and then nothing happens. It just sits there. So you have to be proactive in asking the chair to hear the bill. Now, if you don't like the bill, then you would ask the chair not to schedule it. So just kind of depends on how you feel about the bill. So you're going to go to the person with the most power. That's the chair of the committee. If the bill doesn't get heard, it'll miss a deadline and die in committee. And that's the fate of most of the bills that are introduced. If your bill does get scheduled for a public hearing, this is your opportunity to testify. And testimony is done by a lot of different groups and people, executive departments, interest groups, lobbyists, and the general public. So when your bill is scheduled for a hearing, you'll know because a hearing notice will be issued, and this is what the hearing notice looks like. It has the committee that's hearing the bill, the date, the time, the place of the hearing, and all the bills that they're planning to hear at that committee hearing. And on the bottom of the hearing notice, you'll see instructions on how to submit your testimony. There's really no rules or there's no rules on what your testimony should look or sound like. That's really up to you. But with that said, I think it's always important to write the bill number down, your name, and your position at the beginning, whether you're for or against the bill and why. You don't really have to be an expert. You're educating the committee members because they can't be experts on anything. I know some of the chairs have a lot of experience in certain policy areas, but if you're getting involved, this is obviously a bill that's important to you, and you have your own ideas and opinions on whether or not the bill should move forward. Whether the bill should move forward or not. And you want to express your ideas and share your information with the committee members so they can make an informed decision. telling stories and making it personal is always great. You want to keep your testimony short. You can always elaborate later and ask them if you need, more information. Always be happy to provide that. A lot of people just stand on their testimony and they just use their written testimony. And then using your own words. There's a lot of groups that send out petitions and cookie cutter templates, but you always want to send your testimony out as yourself. So you're not in a stack of paper. They can see that you took the time to submit this testimony, so it must be important to you. Hopefully you all have logins on or have been registered with the legislature's website and have logins. You're going to log into the website to be able to use any of the interactive features. So that's submitting testimony, signing off for hearing notices, creating bill tracking lists. That's all done by signing up and logging into the website. So when you log into the website, your testimony is the testimony tab is just gonna be there. You can only offer testimony when it has been scheduled for a hearing. So if you got a hearing notice letting you know that your bill has been scheduled for a hearing, you're just gonna click on that hearing submit testimony tab and type the bill number in on the left side, just HB and the number or SB and the number and click on continue. If your bill has been scheduled, you'll see this form here in green. They have the bill number, the title, the committee room that is being heard, the date, the time, and it's a form fill where you're just going to be filling out your name, your position, and you'll be able to attach your testimony. If you want to testify on behalf of an organization, you can do that, or as an individual. If you're just submitting written testimony only, just click on that box. If you want to testify in person and submit written testimony, click on that circle. And if you want to testify remotely via Zoom and also submit written testimony, you're going to click on that circle. Then you get to the bottom. So if you've saved your testimony into a Word doc or a Google Doc, you can just click on that choose file, or you can just type your testimony onto the bottom page. And once you're done, make sure to click on submit. If you are working on the bottom part and get tired, maybe it's a long piece of testimony, you can always save your progress, log out, and then go back in and continue. So that's a new option that just started a couple years ago. Once you submit your testimony, it'll show up in green in this box here, and this is your testimony page. So if it's in green, you know that your testimony is submitted successfully. Anytime you address the committee, either in Zoom or in person, you always want to identify the chair and the vice chair and members of the committee first. Keep your testimony short and simple because there may be a time limit. There's a lot of bills that are controversial or people really want to talk about. And so keep your testimony short and simple so everybody has a time. They have timers there, so they may cut you off if you're going too long. You always want to introduce yourself and state your position, whether you're in support or opposition. Just remember to breathe and why you're there and become a trusted resource. So don't exaggerate testimony, stories, statistics. You always want to be honest. And, if you are honest, they'll know you are a trusted resource and your testimony will hold more weight. So after all the testimony has been heard, the committees get together, they go into decision making, and the chair makes recommendations to do different things. They could vote to pass the bill out without any changes, meaning they move it forward from the same way they received it. They could vote to pass the bill out with changes, and changes could be substantive, provided that they fall under the committee, the bill's title. Or it could just be where they're defecting the date or changing, cleaning up some of the language. They could also not vote by deferring or holding the bill So those are two terms that don't really mean the same thing, although it could maybe be. Defer just means that means that the committee is not taking a vote at that time on the bill. They're deferring taking action on it. Holding is actually where they plan to do nothing more and not move it forward. So they're going to hold in the committee. Sometimes chairs defer bills and they bring it back for decision making later, after they've gotten a new draft of the bill. And so deferring just means deferring, taking a vote on it. Holding means to not move it forward. Now, they could defer a bill and never bring it back, but it doesn't necessarily mean that defer always means that the bill is not going to go forward, because it could. So if changes have occurred, we have to remember that, that whatever changes they make have to fit the title of the bill. Changes could be minor, just a defective date or cleaning up some of the language, or it could be significant where they're making significant changes to the bill. Two of the common changes we see here is defecting the effective date. And most of the committees do that here. Well, they'll take a bill that's introduced with a clean date, maybe say the bill will take effect July 1st, 2026. They may defect it out to January or July 1st, 3000, or 2050, or the House and Senate have their own defective dates. But that just means they plan to move the bill forward. There still needs to have discussion on it. It allows the committee to have some type of control over the bill, as it's moving forward. And so, if the House passed a bill with a defective date, with a clean date, and the Senate passed it with a clean date as well, then it'll go up to the governor. So this is a way for the committees to kind of hold on to it until they figure out everything with the bill, which they usually try to do in conference. They could also take out appropriations that are made in the bill. And they usually do this to let the Finance and Ways and Means committees come back in and plug whatever available funds in, for whatever the request is. They usually wait until after the Council on Revenue's projections in March to kind of figure out how much money they have. So defecting the effective dates and stripping the appropriations and bills are common changes. Okay, if a bill gets changed, it gets a new draft number. And you'll see it here. You get either an HD or an SD. HD is a House draft, so it's a draft that's created by a House committee. SD is a Senate draft, so it's a draft created by a Senate committee. And the number behind it is just the number of times the bill has been changed. So this was introduced as HB 141. It got changed once in the House, and got changed again in the Senate. So this is the bill status page, and this is where you would go to find out all the information on the bill that you care about. It has the report title, the description. If there's a companion bill, meaning a bill introduced, same bill that was introduced in the opposite chamber, you'll see that. If it's part of the governor's package or another package of bills, they'll have that listed. You see the current referral that it's made, who the introducers are. So the introducer is always listed first in capitalized letters. And then the other primary introducers will be capitalized letters after that first introducer. And then if you see other legislators signing on to bills in non-capitalized letters, they're what we consider co-sponsors. On the right side, you can see all versions of the bill. So the bill that was introduced, and as the bills change, you can see the different versions. Committee reports are overviews of the discussion in committee. Any type of changes that committee makes, you'll be able to see in the committee report. You can also see all the testimony that was made, for specific committees, all the hearing notices that were issued. On the left side, it's the bill's history. And so you're not going to really figure out where a bill has died. It's not going to say, you can figure out where a bill has died, but it's not going to say bill died. We know a bill has died because it hasn't made it past the deadline. And so if you guys have any questions about whether your bill is still alive, we get a lot of calls during session about that. Feel free to call us and we'll explain to you whether, whether the bill has made it or whether it has not made it and why. Okay, second reading usually happens after the first committee hearing. In between, committee hearing that was held in between first reading and the second reading. Second reading is just a second vote by the chamber on a bill. Sometimes the House has some discussion on it. The Senate usually does not have too much discussion on second reading bills. And then get sent off to its next committee. If the bill moves forward, then you just follow the same process. Ask the chair of the next committee to schedule it for a hearing. If they schedule it to offer testimony on it, you can tailor your testimony to the new version of the bill. Submit your testimony again. You just don't assume that that the subsequent committees are just going to look at your old testimony. They're not. They're just going to look at the testimony that came to their committee and then repeat as often as necessary. So these are always the steps. Ask the chair to schedule the bill for a hearing. They schedule it, testify, follow it as it moves down through the readings, see where it's going next. Ask that chair to testify on the bill. If they schedule it, ask the chair to schedule the bill for a hearing. If they schedule it, testify on the bill, and just keep doing that. It's kind of cyclical in the way that it works. Third reading happens after a bill has made it past all the committees in the bill's chamber of origin, or in the non-chamber on the flip side. And this is where a lot of the discussion is held, because it's the last time for that chamber to talk about a bill before it gets, before it's moved forward. So the Senate has some discussion, a lot more discussion in the House on third reading bills. You can also advocate to the entire chamber. They usually don't vote bills down in committee. Sometimes they send bills back, to the committees that they just came from. And that's a way for them to kill the bill. They call it a recommittal, where they just recommitted back to that committee. You see them do that with some controversial bills where they may not have the vote. So very rarely does a bill actually get voted down on the floor. But you can talk to all the Senate members, all the House members, either by email or calling their offices, and you can ask them to vote a certain way on any bills that will be on the order of business, the order of the day for that particular reading. And then you can ask other people to assist you in your efforts. Crossover is the middle of session where House bills go to the Senate and Senate bills go through the House. And we start the same process all over again, this time in the non-originating chamber. And by this point,
could you quickly go back to the last slide? I was taking screenshots and I missed it.
I will. I can send the presentations to you guys so you can have it.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, after crossover, the bills go through their first reading in the non-originating chamber, and they go through the same process in the other chamber where that committee has to schedule it for a hearing. If they do, they have a hearing on it. They have to move it forward. It goes back to the floor. And so, by this point, a good portion of the bills, probably over half the bills, have died at this point, just by either not being scheduled or by not moving out of committees. Session moves even faster after the first crossover. The bills must get through their non-originating chamber by second crossover. If a bill makes it past second crossover and multiple drafts exist, which is the case for most of these bills that have passed both chambers, then they go to a conference committee. Conference committees can be kind of confusing. We do actually have a workshop on this, and this won't happen to the end of next session. But this is where the House and Senate appoint members to try to come to an agreement and reconcile the differences between each chamber's version of the bill. Now, the chairs of these committees will be the chairs of the bills that the committees that the bills have moved through as part of the process, and they kind of talk it out, and then they finalize the language. And if they do, they come up with a conference draft that goes back to the House and Senate again, and they vote on it one more time. So for a conference meeting, there's no guarantees that members will be appointed to conferees. I mean, appointed as conferees to conference committees. The public cannot testify, but they can still meet with the legislators. The joint conference rules are set up by the House and Senate leadership to let the conferees and conference committees know like what they're allowed to do. Usually only the conference chairs talk unless members have questions. If a bill has a referral to a money committee, so finance or ways and means, those committees need to provide a final approval by releasing that bill. We got fin or RAM release for the bill before they can vote. So they have to approve. They have to provide approval for those bills, any fiscal bill. So that's any bill with a fin or RAM referral before a conference committee can vote on those bills. And then any final version needs to be reported out with a joint conference committee report by the final decking deadline. So you can advocate to conferees. You can stand on the walls, talk to them as they're going in and out conference meetings. You can ask legislators that you've developed relationships with to assist you. You can call their offices, you can email them, talk to them here in the building. So this is a kind of frantic week, or 2 weeks. Everything's happens really quickly. But this is the last part of the lawmaking process for the legislature. And then for bills that get out of conference, they go through final reading, where the House and Senate will vote on it one more time, and this time voting on the conference draft. And then it gets up to the governor, and you have an opportunity to let the governor know your view on the bills that the legislature passed by going to his webpage and filling out a form. If you're following a bill that doesn't succeed, don't give up. Just get ready for next year's session. Sometimes ideas take a lot of work, to get the traction to get moved out of the legislature. So you have to be persistent. Then we're right back into the interim period where, legislators are going back to their communities. Neighbor island reps are going back to their islands. Legislative staff still here doing all kinds of work, wrap up from this session, preparing for next session, doing research, drafting reports. And so we're still busy. We're just not as busy as we are during session. And this is a good time to speak with legislators because they're more available. And then before you know it, happens always very quickly. It'll be the third Wednesday in January, and the whole process will begin again. So we are on a 2-year biennium cycle. So it's a cycle that starts in an odd numbered year, ends in an even numbered year. So it's a 2-year legislative cycle. And then we have the elections, and then the following odd numbered year, we start that 2-year cycle all over again. So again, we're a biennial legislature starting in odd numbered year. And then after the elections, we'll start starting so let me clarify this part. We're a biennial legislature starting in an odd numbered year. The bills that died this year will carry over to next year, where they can take action on it if they want to. After next year, in the 2027 session, all those bills will be new. In even numbered years, new bills are introduced, so they'll push the bill numbers higher. There'll be lots more bills that the legislature will be working with. It's sometimes harder to keep track of everything, but we'll see what happens. So if you guys are confused, don't worry. The public access room is always here to help. We've provided this overview, but the one thing to take away is that we're always available to assist. So if you guys have questions or don't really understand what this means or how does this happen, feel free to give us a call or send us an email or talk to us in the office, and we'll be happy to try to figure it out for you. So this is our contact information, our phone number. the room number, we're in 401. So we're on the Malka Eva side of the building. Our email address. We have a YouTube channel with a lot of archive training on them, a Facebook page, and an Instagram page that is getting more popular, thanks to Andy.
And this page is listed on the Capitol website as well, right?
I think there's linked. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
linked off of the website under the help portion of the Capitol website, and then our website is listed on the bottom. It's lrb.hawaii.gov/par. And so this is what our website looks like. We have different tabs. We have a learn tab, where you can learn everything about the legislative process. An engage tab where you can learn how to do all the action items, signing up for hearing notices, signing up for accounts, signing up for, how to testify, creating measure tracking lists. And then we have the persist page and what you can do after session's over to prepare. And the current legislature page is this, all of our current legislative information, which changes a whole lot. We got a new finance chair now. We got a new representative for Hawaii Kai. So, anytime we have to change any of that information, those will all be available on our current legislature page. So this is the Engagement 101 tab. A lot of people like to watch how to do things on YouTube. And so, if you watch these videos, it'll teach you how to find your legislators, how to register for an account, how to create a measure tracking list, how to submit testimony, and so how to sign up for hearing notices. They're all on the Engagement 101 page. Okay, that's it. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. We actually have a few questions in the chat.
Okay, first, I just want to thank Keanu. That was awesome. Thank you so much for coming and doing that today. So, yeah, Tina, why don't you just go through and read the questions in chat? I have a number of questions after that.
Sure, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first question we have in chat are, how effective are the development of resolutions prior to submitting a proposal for a new bill policy, etc.?
Resolutions can be helpful for ideas that where there's no discussion on bill forms. And so resolutions have there's different reasons for resolutions. So if you wanted to create a task force, call for a study, ask for the legislature to take some position on an issue, that can be done via resolution. So resolutions don't have the force and effect of law. They're usually taken up later in session. They can be introduced at the beginning, but they still will not be discussed until around March or so. But they can be helpful for ideas that are made in a bill where the bill just doesn't get a hearing. It can be helpful to just have that discussion, because it's a lot easier to schedule resolutions than it is to schedule bills. So
and to get them passed as well.
To get them
passed. It keeps, for my opinion, is that a resolution keeps an issue that's not going to get passed. The legislature doesn't have the stomach or the money for it. Keeps it top of mind. So they're definitely useful for that.
Yeah. Very well said. Yeah.
Thank you. The second question we have is, because you said that the chairs of the committees are important people to speak with, how do we find out who those chairs are?
You can find them on the legislature's website. If you go to the legislature tab, and from the drop-down menu, just select House or Senate, and then the committees will populate. So there's 18 of them in the House and 16 of them in the Senate. We also have on the Public Access Room's website, under the current legislature tab, we have a handout with all the committees in a kind of easy to see form.
Perfect.
So Keanu, I don't know if this is the question that was being asked, but how do you find out who the committee chairs are for the next session?
It'll be static until that changes. Yeah. So
right, but when do they usually? So I guess my experience, I'm not sure, is there's no usual time when the majority and minority caucuses release who the committee chairs are. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, they'll release it if it changes. But if there's no changes, they won't have to re-release it. The chairs will just be will continue to be chairs. And so they can change leadership at any time. They can change the chairs and the committees at any time. But so far it's static. I haven't heard anything about changes, and so we'll probably see the same people.
Okay, but it's before, so have you ever had it happen during session that there was a change? And
Yeah, and yeah.
okay,
Both,
wow.
House Speaker was removed a couple years ago.
Oh,
Speaker,
yeah, I remember that.
uh, yeah, and Senate President Kim. So yeah, there was recent changes at the end of session, usually around the last day or so, and that could be just frustration out of conference. But it can change at any time. But
Right. Well,
so
and the one case you're remembering is there was an allegation of sex assault.
yeah,
Oh,
I mean I haven't heard that part, but I mean I could it,
yeah,
it could yes, there was a lot of
yeah.
different changes that part, yeah.
Okay, Tina, what's the next one?
The last question we have in chat is, can the effective date be changed to an earlier date on bills that have like future effective
They can
date?
change, they can change the date, yeah, and they often do to change it back. So it's just kind of a placeholder to make sure that they can kind of have control over the bill. They'll give it a early effective date, like a current effective date. If you're talking about retroactive, I mean, I don't know if they really like, have things go retroactive. I mean, maybe they can, I'm not sure. Like where, like they're all of a sudden they're changing this particular section of statute to be effective from this date. I mean, I don't know if they can do.
Well, one of the things they have done is gut and replace.
Yes.
So you may have a bill and you go looking for the title of that bill, and what the content of the bill is in the so this is one exception to the rule of it must match the title. If they do a gut and replace, then you may find out that in the body of the bill is something that's not related to your bill at all. In fact, your bill has been killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that can happen. I think with the lawsuit, the legislature is trying to be more transparent. And
What was the status of that lawsuit?
I kind of forget. I mean, it didn't. I gotta go take a look at it.
Yeah, okay.
I think what came out of it is that the legislature has to be mindful to be
But,
not
but
use
nothing concrete in law to make them, no. Okay.
so I think they're more mindful of not doing that. Whatever changes they make also have to fit the title, so but with resolutions, they can change the resolution in its entirety. And so they if you had a resolution doing one thing, they can change everything in about it. And by the time it gets out of the legislature and gets adopted, like it has nothing to do with the original resolution. So those are the
Well,
things
that's
you have to watch for.
right. And that's another reason for those of us who are interested in the bills to look at the changes in HDs and SDs, because they can substantially change. Most of the people who are doing advocacy stay on top of that, so I'm not concerned about that. But those people who are new, just hang with those people who've done it before, and the public access room can help as well. So I have a number of questions. If we can get through them, that's okay. That's right, because I think this would kind of like illuminate some things. So I often have trouble so our strategy as the women's community, the caucus, AAUW policy committee is to work with the Women's Legislative Caucus. So there are such things called packages. And so there's the majority package, which is what the majority party proposes, the minority package, which is what the minority proposes, which in our state usually doomed to failure. But then there's the women's package. And we work with the Women's Legislative Caucus, normally they're our primary go-to. So that is the strategy that we use. You don't necessarily go to our individual legislators until after we have solidified our relationship with the bills that we want and with the Women's Legislative Caucus. So finding the caucus package has been a challenge. How do we do that?
If you let me share my screen again,
Go for it.
I'll just go on to, let me go back. Where am I? Zoom. Let me share my screen. Okay, so you go to the legislature's website and you're going to click on this laws and research tab.
Okay.
Click on that one and you're going to go down to reports and lists. And on the left side over here, you see where it says measures by package.
Yeah. Okay.
Click on that one, and then you're going to select the package.
Okay, because that's counterintuitive. But
yeah, so
the laws and research piece is like, why? I usually find it, but it's a challenge. So
yeah,
it's good
so
that we went through this.
And you can select which package you want. So let Women's
Right.
Caucus package, and then
Right.
you see it just opens the report. So that's the easiest way to do it. Again, how we got there: homepage, laws and research, reports and lists, and this reports and list page is a page that Andy and I use as a whole lot to find information. It's very helpful. Measures by package again, and click on in the box and just select whatever package you want to see. In this case, we're looking at Women's Legislative Caucus. And there was one bill that passed this year.
I know we had trouble. We had a lot of trouble this year.
So that's how to do it.
Okay, then my other thing is, I guess that's the most important one on this list that I have is the conference committees.
Yeah.
Which we have jokingly said is where bills go to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm unclear. I know that the rules, they have to give 72 hours notice for the first meeting, correct?
Let me go see real quick what it was. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was the conference procedures here. "24 hours."
24. Okay.
Yeah, for initial.
Right.
I show you how. Let me share my screen again. I'll show you how I found it.
Okay.
So where am I? Oh, so I just went to the bottom of the page, and there's still session info right here. Committees on conference, and then here we have the initial public meeting notice. It says chair shall provide at least 24 hours notice of the first meeting, and then after they're just supposed to announce it. It gets updated onto the website, when the next meeting is going to be. But so
They're only required to, for subsequent, my experience is they only require, they can do what they want. Only 5 minutes.
yeah, they're supposed to announce the time beforehand, like before they go back into the meeting. And they usually try to update that information. It gets hard during the last day of conference when they're meeting multiple times within the day. So it gets kind of backed up, and you may not find that information catching up until later on. But they just have to announce it.
Yeah. So word to us, to advocates, is that if we have serious interest in a bill, we need to be there during conference.
Yeah, I would
in the Capitol.
if you can. It's super helpful. Yeah.
Or have somebody from our group there.
Yeah, that can keep track of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Get on the phone or text. Hey,
Yeah.
we need to come down.
Okay, so I also wanted to stress something that you said, Kiana, to our members here and people who may see this later, is that the power is in the hands of the committee chairs. And
Yes.
yeah. And so who it behooves us to work, and with women's, we could pretty much know who, Keanu talked about identifying our allies, which again means having a lobby day, going around and visiting people. If we don't know, usually we have experienced people who do know who our allies are. But when you have new people, you don't know. So you need to go visit them and find out, right? And we actually have some allies on some issues that have the R after their name, believe it or not.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
nice.
I mean,
It's nice to see people working together.
we used to have Cynthia Thielen, who should have been a Democrat, but she's long gone now, sadly, passed into the great beyond. But so having said that, what we as a women's organizations target those committees that will probably hear our bills, which means health, often judiciary, and unfortunately finance and WAM. So now I want to ask you a question too. So we have some troublemakers like Kim Coco and Amy Peruso, who are working together to get more transparency in the legislature. So
it's
yeah,
never a bad thing for more transparency. But
yeah, absolutely, I agree. So here's my thing: is my understanding and my experience is that leadership decisions are made, and many decisions about who's going to hear what and whether or not things are going to get killed happen in majority and in majority caucus. Minority caucus, they can do what they want, but they're irrelevant because they're a minority caucus. So the majority caucus, however, both of those or caucuses are closed to the public.
Yeah.
So is that your experience? Is that those kinds of decisions get made behind closed doors in the majority caucus?
well, as a staff member, I've actually been in majority caucus sometimes, and
They let you in?
we're not always allowed, but like to us, like when Marilyn was, I had to help her with her binder and stuff, so I was allowed in. But the caucus is usually, talk about how they're voting on the big third reading days, and so they'll figure out which bills they want to see on the ordinary calendar and which bills they want to debate on which bills they want to see on the consent calendar and which bills they want to see on the ordinary calendar to debate. I don't know. I would think that from as far as chairs are concerned and how much pressure the leadership wants to put on them as far as allowing or giving them flexibility or saying, hey, you can't hear this bill, or I don't want you to hear this bill. Those are probably done more outside of I would think it would be done more outside of the caucus. Maybe in a meeting with Speaker, Senate President, in their conference rooms. I would think that would take place there, if I had to guess, outside of the caucuses.
Yeah, okay. So once again, not all that transparent. So fortunately, we have a move towards transparency, which, we won't get everything, but we may get something. So that's good. So I guess my other thing was and this is becoming an issue that hopefully we will get some change in, that almost every bill, whether they have financial implications or not, have to go through the money committees. And what that means is, so just so as you folks know, if a bill has 3 referrals, that kind of signals an intention to kill the bill. It means they don't want to have it pass this session. If there's a slash between 2 committees, that means those committees meet jointly. And then that's all there is those 2 committees meeting jointly, and then a finance or WAM committee, that constitutes really just 2 referrals. If there's 2 referrals, you got a shot. If there's 3 referrals, highly unlikely. So my question to you is, Keanu, is do you have any experience with other legislators where every single bill has to go through the money committees?
I guess it depends on leadership and the people that are making that determination. I think if they look for, almost everything has some type of fiscal implication, even if we can't see it. So I think a lot of the bills do go through those committees. Maybe some we feel may not have to. I I remember working on a bill when I was working with Rep Har. And she was the judiciary chair, and one of our priority bills was for the Victims Compensation Fund. And it ended up going through finance because I felt like they felt like it had to. Not the compensation fund, victim compensation. I mean, it's regarding money, even there's no appropriation. So it went through those committees, and it does make it harder to get finance and ways and means released, especially at the end. So if you can avoid having your bill get sent there, it's the right thing to do. It's probably easier. So it's hard. It's up to leadership, and they can make whatever argument they want for why this bill went there. There's a new finance chair now, and I think he's looking to be a little bit more transparent, and Representative Todd. And so we may see things being a little bit different in the House this year. Senator Dela Cruz is still WAM chair, so I don't know if anything changes on that side, but at least for the House side, it may get a little bit easier, and we'll just see. I once again, I think that anything that could be viewed as some type of fiscal impact or fiscal connection, even if we can't see it, it'll probably still get referred to there. But they don't have to, committee chairs don't have to hold it for so long.
Well, there's a move amongst the House radicals
Yeah.
to address this issue. And I don't know that this is true. This is just rumor on my part, is that I think they have the support of the chair, the speaker.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think both Speaker Nakamura and Rep Todd talked about more transparency, and I think they realize that's it's hard for
Right.
people.
And not having it would lighten their load as well. But of course, this is a power and control issue.
It always has been. Just it's money, and so
Yeah,
those things usually.
right.
We
Take-
do
Okay,
have
so we have we have another question from Marissa. Maybe she would like to clarify this. What is she asking, Marissa?
Sorry, I actually had one follow-up question to your statement, Ms. Freed, about the bills going through Finance Committee. Is there criteria, or is it sort of just subjective to whoever wants it to go through?
Well, what Keanu said to you is the current interpretation, which is if it could possibly ever relate to any kind of money, whether it comes out of the state coffers or not, they're going to make it go through finance and WIM.
Yeah, so it's an interpretation by leadership and what they.
Okay.
And for many years now, I've been doing this for 20 years. That has been the case.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
But it could change. There's new, I mean, we have a whole new crew in there now. It could change.
My other last question was, does your team, Keanu, provide training on resolutions, like how to develop them, how to get them submitted? And
Well, I'm not sure if we have we could create a PowerPoint. I'm not sure if we did a Reso one entirely, but yeah, we'd be happy to do that. That's easy for us to do. Yeah.
that was it. Thank you so much.
Okay, the other thing I have a question for you is if you go to national legislative stuff, and here's Ann's opinion. Ann's opinion is that the House, the reason why we have more difficulty in the House getting bills passed than in the Senate is because they're always running for office. The second they hit the floor, 2 years is a very short period of time. They start fundraising and running for office, so they cannot have their full attention, and they're much more susceptible to pressure with those just 2 years. So there's only, as you said, do you know how many? There's only one unicameral legislature.
Yeah, that's in Nebraska.
So that's one solution, is unicameral. The other solution that I've heard talked about is year-round, or at least extended more than our
Yeah,
current
they
legislature.
talked about that, and I think the Bureau has been tasked, the Legislative Reference Bureau, so our
For the
folks
study?
has been tasked with the study.
Okay.
Um, I mean, there's it's an idea, but if somebody doesn't like a bill, whether the session is 3 months or 10 months, they're still not gonna hear it. So I mean, there's still a lot of politics will still come into play. Um,
Sure, I mean, sure, it's political,
yeah,
Keanu, but you and I both know what happens with running for office in the House.
yeah. So you're not wrong
It's,
about that. It's a good observation.
yeah,
And yeah, people, politicians are always looking, not always, not everybody, but some of them are looking for higher office. I mean, Tulsi started off as a representative here, and now I get it. I saw that. I know. So I understand, but and now she's answering.
she's the one with the worm in her brain. It's like, what the hell?
So yeah, people are always kind of
Yeah.
looking. I mean, Jared talked about running against Ed Case, so Jared Keohokalole, so we'll see. But yeah, people like to move up.
Yeah. But if so, whether or not they had a longer session would not affect that. Yeah, they could
No,
still, yeah.
because they would just resign from their seat if they had
Yeah,
to.
I mean, I think Santa Fe, my family lives in New Mexico, so Santa Fe legislature, the money committees meet year round. But they have a much shorter session than we do. I think it's like 2 months,
Yeah,
something like that. So, I mean, I think that's dumb too.
I think there's one state that has like a 29-day session or something. It's really interesting.
How would you get anything done? I don't know. Anyway,
And then I think New Hampshire has like 436, or one of the Northeast states has 400 representatives, and for a small place. So
right. So I guess my last question to you is, could you briefly summarize what the leadership positions are in the House and the Senate?
yeah. So on the Senate side, you have the Senate president and the vice president, and that's Senator Kochian, Senator Kidani. The vice president just serves as, if the Senate president is not able to conduct the floor session, that's the backup. So it's let me grab my leadership right here. And then below them you have the on the House side, it's the House Speaker and House Vice Speaker. Okay, and then after that we have the majority leaders. And so the majority leaders are the leaders of the caucus. So they're like kind of like the right hand man or woman to the top person in the House and Senate. They're the caucus leaders. So they're in charge of the caucus. And then you have the floor leaders, and the floor leaders are the ones that are doing a lot of the work when they're in session, voting, seconding the vote, those kinds of stuff. So it's more of a parliamentary role, the floor leaders. And then we have the whips, and the whips are same thing, responsible for making sure that leadership has enough votes. So they kind of, make sure they get everybody together and count the votes to make sure that they have enough votes for everybody. You have policy leaders, and policy leaders are the ones that are in charge of creating and driving the policy. And I think that's it. You may have assistant floor leaders that or assistant policy leaders that help, the floor leader or the policy leader, but those are usually all of the leadership positions in the House and Senate.
Okay, so, and I guess the follow-up for is just an observation. I don't know if you share this or not, and that is that we have, in recent years, allies of ours who've been in leadership positions have our bills and their policy has suffered as a result of that.
That happens, unfortunately. Yeah, I get it.
Okay, that's it for me.
So an
No, it's a very
observation
passion.
takeaway.
I appreciate your passion, Ed.
So an observation
and I
takeaway.
your work, Piano. Thank you very much.
So an observation takeaway for me is that our legislators are actually just voting on bills and hearing bills a few months out of the year. And then the rest of the year, they're fundraising, talking with community. Is that kind of what I'm
It could
gathering?
be fundraising, a lot, I just know because I manage three um, offices in the house. And so we were always busy in the interim, reaching out to our constituents, asking them if they need anything, attending, a lot of community events, um, doing research for bills for next session.
Yeah, they stay busy.
Yeah, so we're
So, and it depends, again, you got to watch this is where it's good to find out what your legislator is doing. And they do listen to their voters, so you can easily put pressure on them. In my Amy Peruso, I'm very fortunate, is my representative this year because of redistricting. And she and I believe Trish Lachika, I'm not sure if they're doing this together or not. They're going to have forums. And the next one is going to be on good governance. You know, and that will be, I mean, it's in the districts up in Waihi. So that happens. And they visit their constituents. They go to community events and they try to take the temperature of the community and what it is they want. And he said the idea that they're not working on legislation year round is laughable. I mean, they are. The danger is that if they have to have a job other than legislator, they are going to be swayed or influenced by wherever it is that they work.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. We will have a strategy, Tina.
Okay. This training has been incredibly illuminating. And before we close out, does anybody else have any further questions that we can clarify?
Maybe our SEC rep would like to weigh in. Evan, you got anything? I guess maybe she's just listening.
No, I'm here. I don't have anything at this moment to weigh in, but I did find out a lot of things through Keanu. So thank you so much for being here.
welcome.
Yeah, and I guess probably the most important thing is and I get confused, even with my 20 years, I get confused all the time, especially on deadlines, is that we can call the public access.
Yeah, please. I enjoy taking those calls and walking people through the deadlines on the calendar, and we really enjoy what we do here in the public access room.
I know you do, it shows.
Well, I sincerely want to
Hey,
thank you for taking the time today, Keanu. This has been
absolutely.
extremely illuminating.
I
I've
know.
definitely learned a lot of things, especially with like H1, H2, H3, like learning the different numbers and such. That's quite very helpful. So thank you for taking the time, and I will look
And
forward
thanks for the
to your
recording, Tina.
PDF.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to your PDF of the slides so we can share it with our caucus. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Ann. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, aloha. Over and out.